Who is Fiyin?
Myself, in a nutshell, is basically a very curious person, a relentless person. I always like to be on the move. I used to be like an introvert, but because of building now, I had to become an extrovert. I think the only thing I would have maybe done better was I would have started earlier. Like, I wish I started Helicode when I was age 19. I've already used 20% of my timeline here on this planet.
Before we get into today's episode, a quick one. If you are new here, welcome to Builders Block. If you have been here, thank you for staying with me. This podcast is for builders who want to learn directly from founders, builders, entrepreneurs in the African Web3 ecosystem, all about their journeys, the ups and downs, and what actually works. While you are here, I want you to do just two things to help move this forward. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on conversations that will actually improve the quality of your mind. Now, that's the only thing I will need from you to keep bringing high quality guests to the podcast. Secondly, I'd love you to drop a comment. Your thoughts might just inspire somebody out there watching this also. Today's conversation is one of those conversations where we talk about motion. A moving man will meet his luck. That sounds familiar, right? Finn talks about his early days, how he's always on motion, the lessons learned from building two startups in the past, moving to Rwanda to build Helicode. He shared all about Helicode and what to expect in the near future, and so much more. If you're excited as I am, let's go. Amazing awaits.
Thank you so much, Fiyin, for joining me on the podcast today.
Yep. Thank you, X Pam Pam, for having me on the pod.
Absolutely. Our guest today is the founder of Helicode, the all-in-one infrastructure for global hiring, payroll, compliance, and workforce operation. It's absolutely great to have you here today, Fiyin. Let's start with the basics, right? Who is Fiyin, right? Give us like the context into what brought you here from like the early days and walk us through like that trajectory.
Yeah, I'll say myself in a nutshell is basically a very curious person, a relentless person. I always like to be on the move. I mean, like you guys have seen the recent year has been going viral about like a man must always, be in action. So I'll say he's simply a person who is super curious, super relentless and always wants to be in action. I don't like to be idle, so yeah, that's just Finn in a nutshell.
Yeah, interesting. So two things basically defines you. Always in motion and relentless. Amazing. Are there like any experience from like your early days growing up that shaped like this thought piece about who you are?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I grew up in a family of five. So my parents are missionaries. So I actually grew up in a village in Nigeria. So like growing up has not always been easy. I'll say um growing up has made me see life as something I feel like I need to be an ultimate contributor, because like growing up was not so easy, growing up in the village, and you had like other family members that are outside, the village, and then you're just there, going through the whole lifestyle of villagers, so you're like it was difficult to have access to great education, it was difficult to have access to like great banking and all of that. So the exposure was not there, and immediately I left that circle, I just made it a mission to always be in motion, you know.
Really interesting. So I'm curious as to like from that experience, right? What's like one favorite childhood memory that you have growing up in that settings, right?
Yeah, because we're not used to seeing fine cities, So like I remember one of like the great childhood experience I had was, when my dad used to take us out for like holidays, like, oh, you're traveling to Lagos, oh, I want to follow you, and it was always like the most exciting time. And as a young kid, it was like, oh wow, I'm gonna see the city for the first time. I'll say like that was like one of my favorite childhood memories, when it comes to like traveling to see the cities, you're seeing fine cars, you're seeing like actual real stuff. So, yep.
Yeah, amazing. I think it also brings to memory what we used to do. I mean, myself and some of my friends that I've spoken with, where like where we get to see like new cars and all of that, we start naming them one by one. Oh, this is Islander. Oh, this is car, and all of
Mm,
those things you get.
yeah.
Really, really happy story. So talking about like growing up, you mentioned exposure, right? At certain points, exposure sort of like brought you into like where you are right now, right? Having to leave the rural area for some reasons and having seen the lights based on exposure. Um, what did you actually imagine yourself to be growing up? And did that eventually turn out, or was it exposure that changed the trajectory of what you wanted to become?
Yep, for sure. I'll say yes, exposure is one. But even apart from the exposure itself, I would say because I've always been a because I've always been an ambitious kid, I made it a life mission to, redefine my destiny. So at some point I wanted to become an aeronautical engineer. Because I was like, okay, I mean, the ultimate goal was to be a millionaire, yeah, in dollars, by the way. So I was looking for, so after secondary school, I was looking for like, what courses can I study to make me a future millionaire. And I started like doing a lot of Google search, and eventually I found aeronautical engineering. And sadly, that course was not in Nigeria at that time. So like eventually, started doing architecture. So yeah, I say it's been a very long journey of like um trying to achieve that goal of, hey, I'm gonna become a millionaire. And because I'm a very ambitious kid, eventually I have to become a millionaire.
So yeah, really amazing. So walk us through like your educational background, right? You mentioned you wanted to be like an aeronautical engineer, and then perhaps did you do like architecture instead? And what was like that journey like?
Yeah, so after secondary school, I studied architecture for 2 years because I did national diploma. That was where my mom was working at. Then eventually I was like, okay, I need to go to university. Then I went to OAU to study urban and regional planning. So that's what I eventually settled for. But even when I was in OAU trying to study urban and regional planning, yeah, because I told you I'm a very rentless guy. Um, so initially the course I wanted to study was architecture at the university. But this whole jump issues, yes, I was given urban and regional planning. But I remember in my third year, I was actually like moving around. I was going to the dean office to, explain myself, and it was like the idea was like I actually want to switch from town planning to architecture. I actually almost got it, but yeah. So I took my parents' advice. Were like, oh, you're almost done. Why do you have to start again from year one? When you're almost done, like just do this thing, and then when you're done, then you can always do something else. So I would say like that's like my educational background or process.
Really interesting. So I think there was a tweet of yours that went really, really viral. At a point, it was really controversial. Let us talk about that for a bit, right? What do you have to say about school and how that is instrumental in what a man becomes in life? Perhaps like the thought
Yeah.
process already changed. So
Yeah, I remember the tweet, man. It was a crazy day for me. Like it was like the old Nigerians were they were after me. Like everybody was dragging me. It was a lot. So here's my own take on school in 2026, which is I believe the world is changing. Uh, well, during our parents' time, things were different, but like now, things are much more different. So I'll say school is very important, right? I would never dispute the the advantage of school or education in general. So education is very important. Going to school is very important. Going to university or whatever is very important. But the ultimate question we should be asking is, okay, am I doing this because I'm interested in it? It's like, am I going to study medicine or architecture because I'm actually interested in it, because I have like full interest, or I have like the full conviction this is what I'm going to do in my life, or is this my purpose, right? So my take on going to school is like, I feel like people should not be boxed up in this whole idea of, oh, you must go to school to succeed. I don't believe in that. I believe if you're, like I said in the tweet, if you're lucky enough to find out or to recognize what you actually want to do with your life, I would say just go pursue it. Some people just want to be an artist. Some people just want to be a musician or an actor. So why do you have to go to school and spend, you know, 7 years doing what eventually you may never use? Like for me, for example, I studied architecture. I studied architecture for 2 years. Studied urban and regional planning for 5 years, and I'm telling you, I've never had any reason to use my certificate. And it makes me question, why do we actually go to school? So I would say going to school is very important. Education is very important. I would say it's even the fastest way to beat poverty. But then we need to also, at some point, realize that, am I doing this because this is what I want, or am I doing it because of society, because of what society wants me to do? So I'll say majority of people are going to school because, oh, I must go to school. It's not like, oh, I'm actually interested in going to school. So for me, if what I want to do is, I want to be an artist, I'll just go full time doing art, or I want to become a photographer, I'll just go full time do photography. Well, I guess at some point, maybe the ultimate thing that is super important when it comes to going to school is actually the experience, or like the relationship you build when you're in school. So I'll say like one of the very good advantages I'm very grateful for in school was, I was able to like build real relationships when I was in school, and they're actually still very much useful even up to today. So I'll say that's like my take when it comes to like school, education and all of that.
Really, really interesting. I do think, from what you said, one of the things that I can pick from there is like become good at something, right? And then, you become exceptional at it. And then if people can see value at what you do, then they pay for that stuff. So if by any chance, even like as a medical student, you spend like 10 years, it's because you became good at that stuff. That's why people are paying you. And if school becomes like the path at which you're going to take to get there, then it works for you. And if on the other end, it means doing unconventional stuff, like, learning on your own, like some of us, we did tech, right? We learned stuff on our own and we became really good at it. And people sort of like saw value in what we are doing, and then they pay for it. So I think, that's what I'm able to like deduce from like what you just said, right? Thank you so much for that. It leads me to like the next point of the idea that it takes 10 years to become really exceptional at something, which sort of like falls back to my point of become really good at something, right? What's like your take on this, following through with our last conversation?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I'm a big believer in being good at something, right? Yeah, because like eventually like people pay for value. Nobody's gonna pay you for meat stuff. So for you to become great at something, it takes time. Like it takes a lot of patience, suffering, obsession. I would say ultimately obsession. You must be extremely obsessed. So yeah, like I see even myself, I feel like I've also been there when I used to feel like, oh, I need to try a lot of things, do design, do coding, do all of that. And eventually I figured actually I would never have the domain expertise if I keep behaving this way, if I keep moving from one point to another. So I would say for you to have that extreme domain expertise, you need to spend minimum a decade in a particular field or domain to become great at it. I know it's difficult. I know many people will disagree, but sadly, this is how people become great at something. Like if you read, if you, so I used to read a lot of biographies, right? So I read a lot about the guys that built linear software thing. The guy that used to work at Airbnb. These guys been doing designs for the longest time. Or even let's deviate from that. Or let's use this new guy for example. The new guy, the guy Elon recently hired to be the head of design at Twitter. He has been doing design for I think minimum 8 years, 7 years. I say that domain expertise is very important. So for you to actually like be extremely good at something, I'll say at least 10 years, minimum 10 years to become good at something. And within that 10 years, you would learn a lot of things. You learn patience, you build relationships in that specific domain. you would be super obsessed with it. You would know how it works. Like that's how it basically works, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think some even like nailed it down to like 10,000 hours, right? Instead of like 10 years. So really, really interesting, right? I'm curious as to you studied, you know, urban and regional planning. At what point did you feel like, oh, okay, let me transition into crypto? Oh, what was like your career trajectory? Like, walk us through how you got into design, crypto, and then what you're building right now.
Yeah. So before I got into university, I actually took some training in photography. So when I got into university, I had in my camera, I was doing photography for a couple of months, a couple of years actually on campus. So I was at some like initially I was already used to Photoshop and some other photo editors like photo like Adobe Lightroom, So that was what I was doing when I was on campus, while still schooling. That was what I was doing. So eventually my camera got spoiled, and because I had few friends that were already into design, like into graphic design, so I was like, I think I need to do something else, because like I said, I don't always like to be idle, So then I started doing some stuff around graphic design. So yeah, so while I was in graphic design, I remember we used to like go for events on campus, and I remember the first event that actually like got me interested in technology was this Google Developers Club event we had on campus. One of those guys outside the event now, they're the ones building base market Ashcode. I don't know if you know Ashcode. So they are the ones building base market now. So it was Ashcode and his team that actually that hosted that event on campus. So that was actually the first time like I started like getting interested in tech. So I was like, wow, these guys are working for a tech company in the US and they're actually earning in dollars, and they're actually on campus. Like, yo, what am I doing in my life? So it's eventually like I was doing the graphic design thing. Then yeah, I started looking for remote work. I remember I used to like do a lot of random DMs on Instagram, to get a job. So anyway, eventually I landed my first remote job in 2020. With a digital agency in Lagos. So 2020, so I was saying 2020, because I was very active on Twitter, so started seeing tweets around Dogecoin. Thing is, we've always been hearing about Bitcoin like for the longest time, but when we're seeing Bitcoin as it was a scam, like if you had experienced the whole MMM era thing, there was still Bitcoin, during the whole MMM era. So anyway, in 2020, there was so many things around Dogecoin. So I remember my friends and I we now started like reading about like crypto, how it works and all of that. So the first thing, like my onboarding actually was through Binance, bought Ethereum using Naira. That time the KYB was not crazy. The regulation was not crazy that time. So it was easy to just pay 5,000 Naira to just buy Ethereum on Binance. So yeah, that's how I got into crypto. And since then, I've just been very curious and very interested, super interested in the technology in the ecosystem. And so eventually we started doing some stuff around decentralized autonomous organizations, how stablecoin works, layer one blockchains, layer two blockchain. So I'll say that's how I got myself involved in the crypto ecosystem. But if you ask me what made me even more interested in the tech ecosystem, I'll tell you I think it was in same 2020 when some guys on campus got into Wine Combinator. These guys raised some funds from some funding from YC, and I was like, what? How am I in the same? How am I on the same campus? And these guys are doing big things. I'll tell you, these guys, the guys have built Flux. That was when I actually was like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I need to do tech. I need to be extremely obsessed with tech. And since then I made it like a life mission to actually build something, because it was very interesting, very young guys, like they were like 20, they were like 22, 21, and were actually like raising funds, from YC. So I would say, yeah, that's it.
That's like a really, really great story. I'm particularly, curious, and I want to bring certain points from like what you just shared. The fact that most persons, when they see people do great things, right? They're always like motivated to want to do great things also. it sort of like, stores in like your subconscious, and you also like gone in for that great stuff. And I think that's like, he explains what this podcast is about, right? Where like when you see people talk about their story, when you see people talk about, what they are doing, the challenges and how they've solved it, it sort of like springs like something within you to want to also do great stuff, right? Now you talked about like seeing people earn dollars and you're like, oh, I need to do this. Walk us through like, how did you feel when you earned like your first dollar, working in tech?
Yeah, I was like, is this magic? Because like think about it, never in your life you've never made any money on the internet. Then the first time you were sitting in your space, in your own space, and then you just did like something very small, and then someone is sending you dollars, on the internet. So like, I'll say like my first initial reaction was, oh, is this magic? Like, how is this so possible? And I would say like the first time I made like my first $1,000 on the internet was in 2022, and yeah, it was like extremely interesting. I was on top of the world. I was like, oh, I'm the main man in the arena. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really, really inspiring because you're like, oh, so you've always wanted to do this, right? And now you're actually doing it. I think that's like um one thing that keeps us going, right? Those little wins, those small bits, and seeing us, actually achieve those things. How did you go from working fully in tech or in crypto by any chance? Walk us through like your career trajectory in crypto, right? And also, how did you now say that, oh, I want to build a product?
Yeah, so like I told you before, my growing up was interesting for me personally, and at the same time it was challenging for me personally. I'll say it was testing too personally. So because I'm a very ambitious kid, I knew I was going to do something big in my life. Like it was just, I just knew that that's what I'm going to do in my life. So at every point, it was like a process for me to grow and to learn and to be more exposed to the possibilities on this planet. When I was doing photography, I used to be like, oh, I'm going to be the next TY Bello in Africa. I don't know if you know TY Bello. TY Bello is one of like the, she's a legend in photography. At some point I used to be like, oh, maybe I'm gonna be the next Bayo Borio, who was a former official photographer to the presidential house in Aso Rock. Then I was like, yeah, that's not my space anymore. And then when I got into design, I used to be like, oh, maybe I'm gonna be like the next, great designer on the planet. So yeah, because I knew I was gonna be I knew I was going to do something very great, with my life. And, so like the first time I landed a job with the digital agency thing in Lagos, I landed another job again with a Dubai fintech platform. Then eventually we started to do some stuff around decentralized autonomous organizations. Then eventually I started getting some more international jobs. So when I was in school, yeah, and like I told you, like the first time I saw those guys I raised from YC, then I was like, wow, this is really possible. Like imagine you're on campus and then you're raising huge, huge funds and they actually do like doing something impactful on campus. Like even apart from like raising funds, there's also like you're able to reach like a larger audience just through the internet. I was like, that was so amazing to me. So even when I was on campus, we built Spacevents, which was like the very first product we built. It was an on-chain ticketing platform. We built on Polygon network. So the idea was build something like Eventbrite, but for crypto, like make people attend events, but also enable them to pay for event ticket using crypto. That was the first thing we built. And eventually we built Deal Takes, which was a restaurant reservation platform for anybody who's like in Lagos, trying to like book a table at this 5-star restaurant in Lagos. So we built that, stopped building it, then eventually started building Helicode. So I would say I'll say the first thing that actually like inspired me was those guys that built Flux on campus. I was like, wow, this is really possible, you know. And since then I've always been building, you know, even when I had like full-time jobs, I was always building something. I was always building something. Like I never stopped building anything. So yeah, I'll say like that's how the journey has been so far.
Amazing. So it boils down to like ambitions, right? And how did you had that belief that, oh, I'm gonna become great, right? You talked about building like two products, in the past, right? What lessons did you learn building those products? Do you want to share, for the sake of people watching, by any chance?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, yeah, well, the so there's Kobe Bryant, you know, I read a lot about Kobe Bryant, you know, I always like read his biography, and you know, he'll tell you like he has failed 3,000 times, and that's why he keeps succeeding, you know. So like one of the things I learned is that the very first thing you need to build a successful product is you need your own personal conviction. That's number one. Like you need to have full conviction that okay, this is gonna work. There's no going back. There's always is there's always one way which is like moving forward. So the very first thing is your own personal conviction. I'm not talking about your team conviction now. Your own personal conviction as the founder, right? Is this thing gonna work? Do I believe in it? Do I believe in the problems it's solving? Do I believe in the solution I'm offering, you know, into the market? That's number one. I'll say number two thing I also learned um is yeah, you need to be extremely hardworking, you know, like you need to be obsessed with the product, right? Because you would get a lot of no's, you get a lot of rejections, but because you're obsessed, you know, obsession is different from conviction, right? But because you're obsessed with this product, with this thing I'm building, you're able to, you are able to beat every rejection. Like you're just gonna keep going. Then number three is domain expertise. Like I said, you know, I don't think anybody can build something successful if you don't know if you don't have like the foundational knowledge of how it works, right? That's why domain expertise is very important. Then I'll say number three thing I've learned so far is um, the team behind the product, uh, which is also like extremely important, right? The team you've like gathered together to build this thing, are they actually up to the task to build it? In terms of engineering, are my engineers good enough? In terms of design, are my designers good enough? In terms of GTM, is my growth strategist good enough? So teamwork is very important. And basically, I think maybe the last thing is everything you're looking for is you're gonna get it from relationships basically. So you want to get a grant, relationship. You want funding, relationship. You want to partner with this person, relationship. Yeah, I'll say, well, I used to be like an introvert, you know, but because of building now, I had to become an extrovert. So building relationship is very important. Like you need to learn how to build relationships. And like I also made a tweet earlier that so many people over overbuild over what's the word? So many people try to overbuild like relationships, like, oh, I need to meet this person, I need to meet that person.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so many people over engineer, you know, build relationships. And to be honest, that's not how it works most times. It's very simple, right? It's basically if you build something valuable, your network will find you, you know. So yeah, the last thing basically is like relationships. Like, yeah, you have to learn how to build relationship. You need to travel, you need to go for events, you need to do a lot of coffee meetings, you know, to just keep building relationships. So yeah, assets are like the ultimate. So the major lessons I learned, like, you know, while building the previous two startups.
Really, really interesting. Thank you for that, grounded lessons that you just shared. I'm just going to walk through some of them. The first is like personal conviction. I've also like read stories of founders like they they were like rejected, like this product is not going to work, right? And probably because they stick true and it wasn't their right timing, right? And because they stick true, right, they got like the PMF they were looking for. They also like got the traction and all of those things. So because they were convinced, obsessed, and you know, over time they sort of like build like domain expertise, and they sort of like build their team because they were convinced and stick through to the game long term, right? Thank you so much for sharing that. Right, you mentioned, all of this, and I'm sure like somebody out there is listening, and they're going to factor this into what they're also building, whether as an engineer or whether as a founder, as the case may be. Now let's talk about what you're building, right? Helicode. Really, really fascinating, infrastructure that you're building, especially like in the crypto industry. I like to call you guys like the Deel of Africa, right? Really, really interesting. And so, like, explain Helicode to your grandma, right? And what problem are you solving in like the simplest term?
Yeah, so like you said, Helicode is the deal for Africa, interesting one. So basically, how I would explain Helicode to my grandma is Helicode is simply a product that helps global companies with distributed teams in emerging markets to manage and pay their teams using stablecoin. That's all. So what problems are we solving? The number one thing we're solving is complex compliance. Um, if you read about like how Deel and the other EOR companies like Rippling work, is basically they want to help you hire someone legally from the places you don't have an entity. So we're basically helping companies that are trying to hire in Africa hire compliantly. So we're solving the whole bottlenecks around compliance. That's number one. Number two is cross-border payment is still very slow. It's still very expensive. I'll tell you, one of the few founders in the space we spoke to, they were actually paying $60 per employee in fees. And imagine you have like 20 or 30 employees. That's crazy, right? And again, we've tried to like, we spoke to a lot of company founders and also like employees or contractors, across Africa, and they've told us like how they used to like accept dollars. If you're accepting salaries in dollars, sometimes it takes like 3 days because it's still like wire transfer. So we're solving slow and expensive cross-border payments. Then the third thing we're solving is hiring bottlenecks, basically. So like, I always believe like it shouldn't take you 3, 4, 5 days to hire talent. It should take you about like maximum 5 minutes to hire talent. So we're also like solving the talent allocation in the AI and the blockchain era. So those are the key problems we're solving at Helicode.
Yeah, really, really interesting problem you guys are solving for and solution you guys are building. I'm particularly interested in how you guys think about talent, right? Because that's like you mentioned, you guys want to hire talent in like 5 minutes. Are you guys building the pipeline, or you guys are sort of like outsourcing this work, right? How does it work?
Yeah, so how we do basically is we've built a pool of really great talent. Like I'll tell you, people actually are looking for African talents. Like it's a very huge need right now in 2026. Like many companies are looking to Africa for cost-effective talent. So basically how we do it is we've built a pool of talent. So we have engineers, we have designers, we have growth strategies or whatever in our pool. So whenever like whenever we get a request of, hey, I want to hire for example, a front end developer, we just like place them with the existing talent pool we have. Then then they go through like several interview process. Then yeah, that's how it works basically.
Yeah, nice. So, what role like does the academy plays? I want to confirm if you guys sort of like have like an academy that sort of like trains, or like a course pipeline. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, Helicode started as an edtech platform. So the initial thing we're doing was to reinvent traditional education in Africa. So we're building something like Udemy for emerging technologies. So then the whole thing evolved from, training to hiring, then to this whole payment thing we're doing, using stablecoin. So yeah, for sure we see a training thing that's going on. So what we do right now is we partner with companies or institutions or initiatives to train large pool of talent in Africa. So yeah, it's still currently running.
Oh, okay, okay. So, I've been done that over like the past months and years, right? what skills should people be doubling down on right now by any chance? Just give us some alpha.
Yeah, the first thing is video editing. I'll say that's the first thing. Like people should start learning doing all these like crazy video edits. If you can do that, like people are like there's a very huge need out there. The number two is uh, growth marketers, so like people who can do like GTMs, people who have like interesting GTM ideas, like go to market strategy ideas. Because we're in the AI era, so like anybody can build a product. So the only thing that would actually make a successful product from an unsuccessful product is sales. Like how good are you with sales? That's why people are looking for go to market strategists. Then I'll say another one is design engineering. So if you can do design and also like implement it yourself, which of course you should be able to do right now. Like there's Cursor, there's all these other platforms and help you do that. That's another one. The other one is blockchain developers are also out there. They're also looking for blockchain developers. Also people that can do a lot of social media strategies, I don't know what it was. There's something they call it on crypto Twitter. Do you remember what it's called?
Like city leads or something like
Yeah,
that.
city, something like that. Yeah, we get a lot of requests for such roles. Then we get a lot of requests for roles like I've mentioned blockchain developers, right? We also get a lot of requests for roles like front end developers as well, and then security developers.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that alpha. So if you are listening to this, this is like your cue to grow, double down, gain domain expertise in sort of like growth engineering, sales engineering, design engineering, and also like video editing, right? Thank you so much for sharing that. And so now it brings me to like the next thing I'm curious about, which is you recently announced like a partnership with Yellow Card, right? Congratulations, on that.
Thank you.
Right. You know, walk us through. You mentioned, when you want to talk about partnership or when you want to get partnership, sometimes it might be relationships. Now, tell us, was this as a result of like relationship, and what does this partnership mean? What should we be expecting in the future? And tell us about like some amazing features we should expect in the future, from Helicode.
Yep. So the yellow card thing happened through relationships, like I said, So I think the first thing was I was at an event in Kigali last year. Then I met the guy leading yellow card in Kenya. I think that was the guy I met. Then eventually my co-founder also met him again in Kenya at an event. Then eventually like we just built a relationship. Then we told them like, hey, we're building Helicode. I would like to partner with Yellow Card. So yeah, that's how the whole partnership thing came into place. So why we partner with Yellow Card basically is so in Helicode, the whole payroll system is built on stablecoin rails. So basically how it works is an employer in the US or in New York City, for example, can send stablecoin salary to an employee or contractor in Accra, Ghana, or Nairobi, Kenya, and so they get a salary in stablecoin, for example, like USDC or USDT. So the next question is, how do they spend the USDT? Like, how are they gonna make payments locally? So we had to partner with Yellow Card to enable talents or employees or contractors to be able to do like local payments generally. So you receive salaries in stablecoin, then you can also like withdraw to local currency using Yellow Card. So we're using Yellow Card rails. Yeah. So that's what the partnership with Yellow Card is all about. Then some other new features people should look forward to on Helicode is we're going to be releasing cards, virtual cards. So the idea is as an employee, you should be able to like spend your salary anywhere in the world. So like if you travel to China, for example, you should be able to like spend your salary, anywhere in the world, like using your Helicode card. Then eventually we're also going to be integrating yields. So the idea is you have like $5,000 you rarely use or rarely withdraw from your wallet. You can't be able to like earn up to 6% every month. Same thing for the employer as well, because I mean, like, these like huge organizations that have like huge of funds, the payouts in salaries, some sometimes it's usually up to like $200,000, you know? So why should you have $20,000 sitting in your wallet just useless when you can actually like earn up to, 6% on interest every month? So that's another thing we're gonna um integrate on Helicode very soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, for sharing that. What I can deduce from that is the fact that, most companies sort of like have treasuries that they sort of like pay from. And so instead of those just sitting idle, you guys are gonna route that to like yield strategies. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes, correct. That's correct.
That's brilliant. And I also love like the concept of like the Helicode card and where you can sort of like spend your salary anywhere in the world. And thanks to like stablecoins and what's like and different companies building local stablecoins, right? You know, you guys can sort of like connect to the rails of your partner to sort of like offer by any chance. That's where like the yellow card implementation comes into play.
Yes, correct.
So thank you so much. Yeah, you mentioned like your co-founder, right? I've seen his picture online. I'm like, okay, how did you guys meet? Tell us. How did you guys?
Very interesting. Very interesting story. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
it's a very,
What's of it?
yeah, it's a very interesting story. So the very first time I flew to Kigali was in 2023 July. So I'd met a Nigerian guy he's living in Kigali. So he met me, told him at that time I was not building Helicode. So we just exchange contact like, hey, I'm in the Web3 ecosystem. This is what I'm building. This is what I do. And then so like we exchange contacts and then that was it. So in this, I think same 2023, Van came from Germany to Kigali, first, I think it was like his first time in Africa. So he met the same guy, same Nigerian guy, and he was telling the same guy, hey, I'm trying to build some stuff around, Web3 in Africa. Do you like know any builder or any guy building anything in the same ecosystem in Africa? You like to learn, you like to see how things work in Africa. So that's how the guy connected myself and Bandros, and yep, that's how we met.
Really interesting. So like it was like a middleman thing.
That's how it happened.
I hear that from like a man and a woman, but like
Yeah,
I think this is really interesting.
that's exactly how it happened. Yeah, it was just someone that connected two of us together. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Do you want to like tell us what do like you and your co-founder each bring to the table, right? Tell us like your strengths and like how you guys complement each other.
Yeah, so for myself, I'm more on the product side, products, sales, and design, basically. Then for my co-founder is more on the business development side. I also have like some bit of like engineering background. So my co-founder side is more on the business development side. Like he knows how to build relationships. He knows how to sell. He knows how to convince you to buy something. Because he has also built products in the past. There was a product he built that scaled to $10,000 in monthly recurring revenue. So he already he's built this. So he's built these skills of sales and marketing, yeah, I'd say like that's what basically both of us, that's what begins at the table, in terms of like skill sets. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. The reason why I'm asking this question is because, certain people would say that, your co-founder determines how far like you guys can go. Like if you guys are not the same like value set or whatever, you can sort of like cause like an issue. And so I'm curious as to like what do you look out for in a co-founder and what should other people, look out for? What do you recommend?
Yeah. The first thing is trust. That's number one. Can I trust this person? If you can trust this person, then that's good. Number two is, does this person also have the same conviction I have in this product? That's number two. Is this person to work extremely hard? That's number three. Number four, is this person ready to like sacrifice everything for this product to work? And yeah, I'll say yeah, that's all basically.
Yeah, thank you so much. Trust, conviction, and also sacrificing everything, right? Yeah, it connects to what like most of the founders here have, sort of like said how that some even said like, you guys maybe have experienced the same problem in the past and you guys are like, oh, we need to solve for this. So which sort of like boils down to like conviction, right?
Yes.
And willing to sacrifice, everything. Thank you so much for sharing that. In all of our conversation, right? You've mentioned a lot Kigali, Rwanda, and I know like you're in Nigeria, right? Tell us
Yes.
what's the story about how did you move to Rwanda? I think like you posted like a tweet some
Yeah.
months back, right, about moving to like Rwanda, and you mentioned you moved to Rwanda to bet on the future of hope, and you said time to go all in on Helicode. Why did you move? What's like what informed what informed to yeah, right.
Yeah, so like in 2022 when I came to Rwanda, it was my first time in Rwanda. I was like, wow, how can a country in Africa be this clean, be this organized? I came again in 2024, and so like I just knew Rwanda was like the best place to build. So the ultimate reason why I moved to Rwanda was the first thing is Rwanda is an emerging economy, right? They have this emerging economy thing. Rwanda is super interested in emerging technologies. When you're in Rwanda, you don't pay for YouTube. In Rwanda, I think Rwanda they also did a partnership with I think Udemy or Coursera. So like anybody like young people in Rwanda can also like learn all these courses for free in Rwanda. So all those things I was like, wow, this is where I need to be. And then I think the ultimate reason why I even moved was I was looking for a camp. So one of like the goals I wrote for myself last year was I'm just gonna move to a strange country and just stay off radar for 3 months. Just me, no friends, nobody, just building. And because Rwanda is a very peaceful country, it's very calm. There's no noise. There's no crazy population. There's no traffic, and the light there too is very good. Like they have like 24/7 electricity. So yeah, that was why I moved to Kigali. I was looking for a calm place to build, no noise. Just the only thing your brain capacity is working for is just building. You're not stressing about the traffic or crazy population or whatever. It's just building. And that's exactly why I moved to Rwanda. Mhm.
Right. It's really, really interesting. While we were chatting earlier on, I called it like soft japa, right? I mean, for what is what, right? For anybody looking to do that, while like it might seem interesting to other people who are like, oh, I need like a solitary place to go build. That gives me like the comfort and also all of what I need to build at the time. What are the like requirements, if you don't mind? And can you share like some of the steps?
You mean you're coming to move to Rwanda?
Yes, yes.
Um, I think maybe the first thing is I'll speak for people who have like businesses or who are trying to build a startup. So basically, when you move to Rwanda, the first thing is you need to register your business in Rwanda. Then once you register your business in Rwanda, then you go to the immigration center to have your work permit. And so once you are given your work permit, then you have like an office space. Yeah, that's basically all. Yeah, that's all.
So those three simple steps and you're
Yeah,
good to go.
three simple steps like book your flights, go to Rwanda, register your business, get a permit, get an office space, and that's all.
Interesting. So for anyone watching, maybe this is a cue to move to Rwanda. That's all that you need to do, right? Looking back, right, is there anything you would have done differently by any chance in sort of like your journey, building and also doing great stuff? Is there anything at all?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would have maybe done better was I would have started earlier. Like, I wish I started Helicode when I was age 19. Yeah.
Okay, maybe it points back to like your point of like you need to spend at least like 10 years in something to become extremely good. Probably if you have started at age 19, would have given you like that enough runway to sort of like do stuff.
Yeah.
Really, really amazing. Also, like I want to tie it to like what's sort of like your approach to staying in the game long term, because from all of our conversation, right, we've talked about conviction, and I trust that sometimes it might not be working out, but you still need to stay long term, and also even if you are building domain expertise, it still needs to be long term. building Helicode, right? What's your approach to staying long term?
It's a very interesting one. I would say, well, I'll say the first thing is to have a co-founder. That's one, because if you're building alone is very difficult. If you're building in Africa, it's even much more difficult. So I'd always advise to have a co-founder. That's number one, because I'll tell you, we've experienced a lot of like crazy rejections, and sometimes I'm just there and I'm like, okay, why am I even doing this? And then I just pick my phone and I call my co-founder, Vandros, and I just like keep ranting, like, bro, I don't know what's going on. And he's like, you know what, it's okay, bro. It's part of the journey, let's keep going, let's keep going. I'll say that's one. Then number two basically is while you're building, you should also have fun. I'll say I'm not just building, I'm also like having fun. I'm like just going to places. Like right now I'm in Nairobi, like just going to random places and just keep meeting like interesting people. And also like so I also try to read a lot because it helps with like, okay, why am I going through, like, if you imagine if you have questions like why am I even going through this thing? Because I remember like when we're trying to like raise pre-seed, I mean, we were started like talking to VCs, early days, it was like, why am I going through this? Like, why do they keep telling me no, no, no? So then when I started reading like biographies, like books, like, okay, so I'm not even the only one. Okay, so this same guy experienced the same thing. And then maybe like just doing other things like sport, like eating the gym. So yeah, try to go to the gym, try to do some other things around tennis, swimming. I'm just having fun generally. Well, I'd say that's what keeps me going. But like the higher vision that helps me to keep going is the fear of like time, like time is our ultimate asset. It's our greatest asset in life. So yeah, the idea of you have to just keep living every day is another thing.
Interesting. Can we say that's what truly motivates you? Like that's one intrinsic thing that keeps you going, right?
Yeah, that's what keeps me going. That's what truly motivates me. Just like time, like there's no time. I'll say I've already used like 20% of my time on this planet. So I have to just keep going. I have to keep running.
Like a moving man, right? On motion.
Yes.
Interesting, right? Now let's talk about what you do outside of work, crypto. How do you keep yourself sane? I mean, you've touched on like sports, gym. Are there anything, or do you have a list of things that you do outside of like work by any
Yeah.
chance?
Yeah, I think I already mentioned it. So like I go to the gym, I play tennis, sometimes I go swimming. And the other thing I do is I just like go out with friends. So like sometimes when I'm like, okay, you know what, let me just go touch grass, just call my friends, guys, let's go out there to have fun. And traveling too, like, yeah, I really love traveling a lot. So yeah, I'll say that's what I do outside work. It's no more than that. If I'm not doing all those things, I'm working.
Yeah, right. I'm talking about work, right? So that was just by the side. I'm really curious as to like some of the lessons you've learned building Helicode, especially like the challenges. You mentioned you guys reached out to quite a number of people while you guys were trying to, raise pre-seed and you got a lot of no's. I'm sure that's like a challenge. Walk us through like your diary of challenges and how you were able to sort of like solve those challenges.
Okay. I think I'll start from like the initial product we were building, which was the education platform. So, like the first thing we're looking for instructors, right? We're like pitching, myself and my friend were pitching instructors on LinkedIn, you know. And at some point, like we were getting a lot of news, like, I'm not interested. Has anybody ever tried Helicode before? So we're getting a lot of no's. But anyway, we we yeah, we figured a way to eventually like convince some guys to join us. Then some other things we went through was like, we're trying to integrate some payment solutions on our platform, try to use like Paystack for the way, went through a lot of like interesting things, that was very difficult. And then the whole VC thing, trying to like reach out to VCs and then you're just getting like bunch of no's. Like I'll tell you, I've sent a lot of emails, and everybody was always saying no, 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 no. That's not interesting to us. No. um, but anyways, like those are then maybe like partnerships as well. Trying to like partner with this person, they're like, we're not sure what you're building, still no. Maybe you're trying to convince someone. I think the most painful one for me basically is when I'm trying to convince someone to join my team. Then they tell you, I'm not sure about what you're building, That's like, that makes you question what you're building. It's like, wait, am I actually doing the right thing? Am I on the right path? At some point I was asking myself this question, am I on the right path? Because it was like, wow, like I'm convincing these guys to come and join me. And then it's like, I don't see anything. I don't see anything significant in what you're building. So yeah.
Yeah, really, really interesting. I think usually like convincing people to see your vision is usually hard.
Yeah,
Like
it's difficult.
they say like, I mean, you have to keep to the game till everyone sort of like believes in your story or like they come dancing to your tune also. And trust me, you guys are doing like a great job, especially like you nailing down your co-founder and you and your co-founder working together, and you have a team right now, right? And
Yep.
people were convinced and they were able to, work with you. And I think that's like a yes. And I'm sure like on like the VC side, you guys also would, like get a yes, right? And I think it's about them coming into like the realization of what these guys are building. Right? Do you want to share some lessons you've learned, try to convince VCs? Could it be because you're building from Africa, or could it be because they are not convinced on the product yet?
I don't know if I should give an advice on that because we've not raised VC money yet. So yeah.
Okay. I mean, like I was trying to sort of like learn from the experience that you went through.
Okay.
For the most part, I'm sure like you must have seen some recurring trend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say the
That
first
was
thing.
what.
Yeah, still the first thing is relationship. Like whoever wants to give you money, they must know you. They want to see like the other side of you. Like I think one of like the biggest thing we've always been hearing is VCs bet on founders, not the products. They bet on the people behind the products, not the products. And so when they say, "Oh, we're gonna bet on this person," it means like you've built this relationship with them. They've seen you. They've seen what you've tried to build over the years. So I'll say relationship is like number one. And number two thing is like they want to see like traction. Like okay, what's like the progress? How much revenue are you guys doing? Who is using you guys? Who are your customers? Then maybe the third one is like conviction. Like okay, are you actually like, do you have full conviction what you're building? I think conviction is like the ultimate thing, for everything. Is like it keeps like showing up in almost every conversation. So even like investors want to see like, are you convinced like this thing you're doing is gonna work out? Because what if they give you money and then maybe something goes wrong? Are you gonna stop building or are you gonna keep building? So they also want to see like the relentless spirit, and all of that. I'll say like sorry, three things I've seen so far. When we've been trying to,
Yeah,
our process of raising funds.
thank you so much for sharing that. So while you were saying that, something just dropped in my mind where like maybe those businesses are only trying to test how long you can stay in the game, right? Are you actually really convinced, just like you mentioned, right? Or like it keeps showing up, like that's a good trait, and it's basically okay, like you're hawking your product for the most part, right? That's like a really, really important one. Conviction, the relationship part, and betting on like the founder themselves. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
What's like let's talk about crypto, right? What's like your use case for like crypto? Walk us through some of like the things that you're seeing right now that crypto can be useful for, especially like in Africa, and other regions.
Yeah. So I'll say the first one is stablecoin. Like the stablecoin use case is very clear. Like is as clear as water. That's correct. So yeah, like stable, because here's the thing. I've experienced this thing personally when I was still working with Web2 companies. Like they send me US dollars, like my salary, then it's taking like 5 days to withdraw my salary. That's very crazy. Like, why am I supposed to be going through that? So stablecoin is a perfect use case for solving painful problems in terms of like cross-border payment. I'll say it's even like the biggest use case out there. The number 2 use case I've seen that is very clear is yield. I think yield is very clear. Like, if you can give people the solution of like, you know what, I have like this huge funds, I'm just holding my treasury and like it's not growing, Same way, that's why some people actually like put their money in banks, just so they can earn like some very little interest. So if we can provide a solution of, you know what, if you can give us access to your treasury, of course, you can withdraw anytime, then you earn like 10% in interest every month. I think people will be interested in that. Then number 3 thing, I also see the whole prediction marketing use case is also very interesting in Africa, because like people wants to bet on outcomes, like who's gonna win this election, who's gonna win this game. Yeah, I'd say that's another interesting use case I've seen. Let me see. I think those are like my 3 biggest use case for crypto in Africa. Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much. I also wanted to like ask like what are your like predictions for crypto in Africa? But I think this sort of like ties everything together, right?
Yeah.
Like the stablecoin part, we've seen like stablecoin blow up, right? Also like prediction markets and also like yield. I mean, like most people will be like, well, why is my stablecoin sitting idle, right? I need to park it somewhere so that I can sort of like any yield. So
Yeah.
I think um that makes a lot of sense, right? So for
Yeah.
anyone listening to this conversation, if you're looking for like a niche to build in, probably like this is your cue to, go build something in like stable coins, and prediction market and also like yields. And I also do think like RWAs sort of like also come to the picture for like the yield, especially like in Africa, bringing like reward assets on chain. Probably like jamming a lot of like regulation clarity by any chance. But then, yeah, I also do think that would sort of like play out in the long run. Now let's talk
Yeah.
about how you deal with your emotional and mental health, building as a founder. You talked
Yeah.
about, sometimes when you want to rant about something, you just call your co-founder. You're not the first person saying this, right? Like 3 founders already said this, where like they call their co-founder and they sort of like rant. One of the founders that I interviewed mentioned that probably we need to set up like a company that is themed around founder therapy, and founders will be willing to pay for that. How are you dealing with stress, emotions, and also like health, because you are building almost like around the clock, right? Whether you are fixing sort of like an integration or you are like, on a partner's call and all of those things. How are you optimizing for health and also like emotional balance?
Yeah. So basically, it's just going to the gym, build the mind, build the body. So yeah, it's basically like going to the gym. That's number 1. Then number 2 is being very close with my co-founder. So like, yeah, we tell ourselves no secrets, no secret, bro, no secret, bro. So like everything we tell ourselves, like whatever you're going through emotionally, like we just tell ourselves. Yeah, say like those are the two things that helps me emotionally. Yeah, going to the gym and then being very close with family, my co-founder, my friends, just going out in general, seeing movies, yeah, touching grass, go out, go touch grass, Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, thank you for that. I think that gym part is really, really important. Right? You just clear your head and yeah, touching grass and doing quite a number of those things. Um, what's something you wish more people asked you but don't? Do you want to share on the podcast?
Let me see. Maybe I wish more people asked me my I don't know, let me see. Okay, I think someone actually did ask me on LinkedIn, which is my what drives me? Like, I wish more people ask me, like, bro, what's really driving you? Like, you know, yeah, I wish more people ask me that, like, bro, what really drives you? Like, what keeps you going? Yeah, a random guy on LinkedIn actually asked me, like, what drives you? And that was so interesting, you know.
Yeah. Can you briefly tell us your answer?
I've told you now, it's the time thing, bro. Like I told you, like I've already used 20% of my timeline here on this planet. So fear of, oh my God, I only like there's no time, you know, I have to keep going, I have to keep flying, I have to keep moving forward. And then the fear of regrets, like when you like old age, you know, when you're like, oh, I wish I did this, I wish I lived my life this way. Yeah, I'll say like those two things, you know, scares me out. You know?
Yeah, so you literally want to die empty, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
you want to exhaust
So.
every.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, right. I mean, really, really amazing. I love that. It boils down to what you said. Like you are really, really like ambitious, right? So yeah. Um. So sort of like we have come to like the end of the podcast. You know, it was really, really great getting to know you. You know, from like your background story, how you think about the world generally, and you know the ambition and what sort of like drives you. I really do hope that this serves as like a source of inspiration to every other person out there, you know, and they sort of can learn from your journey and how you sort of like approach life, right? So I've come to like to the session of like break the pod, where I basically just cook up two questions. If you have like abundant capital today, which African startup, Web3 startup would you invest in and why? You know, you can't mention Helicode actually.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll bet on Paycrest.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and the reason
And
is
why?
because I see their designs because I'm a designer. I'm very big on design. I see their designs, and I think they have like the best design language out there in the Web3 ecosystem in Africa. Like the design quality. Yeah, most people don't even talk about it, but yeah, the design quality of Paycrest is insane. Like I always tell Chibi, like, bro, who I don't know if you saw it, but yeah, I made a comment on Twitter, like, bro, who is your designer? Like, we need to send money to your designer, you know. So yeah, that's how I bet on. And these are like very few things like investors actually look at. That's what they look at. Like I'll tell you, the former company I was working at, that they were into interoperability they were doing like an interoperability protocol. The reason why they got some investment was because of the pitch deck design. The pitch deck design was insane. Like I think it's the best pitch
Interesting.
deck design I've ever seen in my life. So
Yeah, nice. Thank you for sharing that. So, like the little details, right, into like what you put
yes,
into how you execute things, right? The design of like your pitch deck, of like your landing page, you know, like putting in excellence in what you do, like the very best, right? Yeah, I think I do also agree with you, and also like congratulations to them for raising like their pre-seeds, and they're
yeah,
doing like quite a number of an amazing job. Quite a number of like founders also mentioned them on the spot when I asked the same question. So yeah, I also just wanted to mention that you know you guys landing page is also like you know sweet. I don't know how
thank
to
you so
explain it, but I really do love you know the color code. Will I call it code or combination?
yes,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you so
So
much.
yeah, you're welcome, sir. The second one is what's one belief about crypto in Africa that you think is completely wrong?
Oh, um, well, I think I've been there before. Like, I think we should stop saying crypto is made for Africa. But I don't think crypto is made for Africa. I think crypto is made for everybody in general. Like, so far so far you're making payments. So far you make payments. You know, you're an employee or you're a contractor, you're a builder, or you're a founder. Crypto is made for everybody. I don't think crypto is made for only Africa. Crypto is made for everybody. I know the use cases are more interested in emerging markets like Africa, but I wouldn't say crypto is only made for Africa. Crypto is made for everybody. Like crypto makes us universal citizens on the planet. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, right. I mean, I also do agree with you. The fact that it disrupts like the traditional financial system alone, it's like a huge leap, right? No intermediaries, right?
Mhm.
Programmatic money. you know, really, really cool stuff. So yeah, I mean, I do agree with you. Probably like it's just a way to, make it feel like, to
Yeah.
what we are going in Africa. But yeah, totally understandable. Thank you so much, Fiyin, right? We have come to like the end of like the podcast. It was great having you here today. Sharing your journey, your insights as a founder, and what you've learned building Helicode. Thank you so much. Hopefully, I'll get to have you later on when your company gets like over like the money you're looking for, right? I really don't. Maybe like $10 million. Or I mean, I don't want to put a number to it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Let's be
looking
optimistic.
forward to. Sorry.
I said, yeah, let's be optimistic for sure.
Yeah, yeah, right. Looking forward to have you on the pod again one of these days. So yeah, if this conversation made you curious about what Finn and the team are building, be sure to follow him on X and check out Helicode. And if you found this conversation valuable, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel for more conversations as this. Right. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Yep. Thank you, X Pam Pam. Thank you. Bye.